I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, spilling my guts about something so raw and twisted, but here I am. It started with what I thought was a happy life. Married to Emily for 5 years, a decent job, a cozy little house outside town. We had plans, dreams, a rhythm that felt solid. But then everything shattered in one night over something I wish I'd never seen. It was a warm Saturday afternoon, and I was in the backyard, cleaning up after a barbecue. The kids were inside, probably fighting over a tablet, the usual chaos. I was wiping down the patio furniture when I saw her, the worst sight you can imagine. Emily was kissing my brother Mark right behind my back, not just a peck on the cheek either. It was deep, hungry, like they needed each other more than air. My stomach dropped like I'd been punched. My hands went numb and I felt my entire world tilt sideways. I wasn't blinking. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen. I froze there, staring. My mind scrambled for explanations, but there was only one. They'd been sneaking around for weeks. I could see the way Mark's hand was clutching her waist, her lips pressed to his neck like they were trying to hide something but not hard enough. And the worst part, I saw her clutch her phone as if she wanted me to catch her. That arrogant, careless attitude, like she believed she could get away with it forever. I felt like my chest was constricting, a hot wave of anger rising. I clenched my fists until my knuckles turned white, my palms slick with sweat. I wanted to storm over, rip them apart, but I just stood there, stunned, feeling like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. I repeated her name in my head over and over, trying to piece together what this meant. How long? Why her? And most of all, how the hell did I not see it coming? The signs were there, I guess. The late nights, the closed-off attitude, the way she'd dodge my questions about her phone. But I'd convinced myself it was normal, that everyone was busy, that I was just paranoid. Turns out I was blind. I remember the way my heart pounded so loud I thought the neighbors could hear it. My stomach turned over, acid churning like 1,000 knives twisting in my gut. I wanted to yell, scream, tear everything apart, but I just couldn't move. All I could do was watch them kissing in my own backyard. It was surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. I don't know how long I stayed frozen, maybe seconds, maybe minutes, but eventually I turned away. I couldn't look at them anymore. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead and my head spun. I needed to get out of there to breathe, but everything inside me was boiling over with rage, betrayal, and heartbreak. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying what I saw. I kept asking myself how long they'd been lying to me, how I missed it. The worst part was the sense of shame, like I should have seen the signs. It gnawed at me, the idea that I was naive, that I was blind to the person I loved most in the world. I still feel the sting, even now, just reliving that moment. And the funny thing, I thought I knew her. I thought I knew my brother. Turns out I didn't know a damn thing. Now I'm left with this gnawing ache, a deep hunger for justice. I don't want to just walk away. I want to make sure they pay for what they did. But I've got a plan in mind, something calculated, cold, and clear. I have to admit, part of me still hopes I'm wrong, that I've misunderstood, that somehow it's all a mistake. But deep down, I know the truth. And I know what I have to do next. The next morning, I woke up feeling like someone had pulled the rug out from under me. My limbs felt heavy and my mind was racing a mile a minute. I kept replaying the backyard scene, each time with more detail, her lips, his hands, the way they looked like they belonged to each other, not to a brother and wife. It was like a movie I couldn't turn off, only this wasn't fiction. It was my life, unraveling right in front of my eyes. I knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. This wasn't some petty argument or a misunderstanding I could talk my way out of. It was betrayal on a level I'd never imagined, and if I let it slide, it'd eat me alive. I needed a plan, a way to make them pay, something that would hit where it hurts without making me look like the crazy, vengeful ex. I wanted control, clarity. Revenge, yeah, but smart revenge. First thing I did, I went through her phone. I knew I shouldn't have, but the curiosity was eating me alive. I wanted to see if there were any messages, any signs that this had been going on longer than I thought. It wasn't hard. Her notifications were stacked up, a mess of texts and photos. There was one from Mark, dated 2 weeks ago, that made my stomach turn. It said, "Can't wait to see you tonight, love you." Love you? Seriously. I clenched my fists so tight I thought my nails might pierce my palms. I deleted everything from her phone that I could find. I didn't want her to suspect I'd been snooping, but I needed proof. I needed something concrete. I also took screenshots of the messages, the kind of evidence that would make her realize I wasn't some naive fool. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and disgust. She thought she was clever, that I'd never find out. Well, I had, and I was going to make sure she paid. After that, I started planning my next move. I wasn't naive enough to confront her right away. No, I wanted to be strategic. I started gathering more evidence, tracking their secret meetings, watching their routines. I noticed Mark's car was always gone on weekends, and her phone was always silent during those times. I asked around the neighborhood, got someone to keep an eye out, just in case they tried to slip past me. But I wasn't just doing this to gather dirt. I wanted to make sure I had everything I needed to hit back hard, to make her realize she'd crossed the line into a world she couldn't control. I needed to catch her in the act again, but this time I'd be ready. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some naive husband who'd turn the other cheek. No, I was going to be the one who finally turned the tables. In the meantime, I decided to act normal. I still went to work, played with the kids, smiled at neighbors. Inside, though, I was boiling. Every moment I wasn't actively planning, I was imagining. What I'd do next, how I'd catch her, how I'd expose her. The more I thought about it, the clearer my plan became. And I knew it had to be perfect, something that would leave her with no doubt about my resolve. One thing I did do, confront her about her behavior. Not directly about the affair, but about her acting distant, secretive. I pushed her on it, trying to get her to admit something. She smiled, fake and sweet, brushing it off like I was overreacting. "You're imagining things," she said. "You're paranoid." I looked her straight in the eyes and saw the flicker of guilt, but she was good at hiding it. If I was going to do this right, I had to wait until I had her completely cornered. That night I sat outside again, watching her go inside. I felt the cool night air on my skin, the faint scent of jasmine from her garden. I knew I was close to doing something big, something that would change everything. I just had to be patient. Patience, I told myself, was my greatest weapon now. I wasn't going to let her see me sweat. I was going to make her regret every lie, every stolen moment. I didn't sleep that night, of course. My mind kept turning over plans, scenarios, ways to make her realize I wasn't going to be the fool she thought I was. Whatever it took, I was going to make her understand that betrayal had consequences, and I wasn't going to be the one left holding the broken pieces. My next move was clear. I'd set the trap, and when she walked right into it, I'd be ready. Over the next few days, everything felt like slow torture. I kept my eyes peeled, watching her every move, trying to find the right moment to strike. I knew I couldn't afford to rush. This had to be calculated. I wanted her to see that I knew that I was one step ahead. It was like a game, only it wasn't a game. I was fighting for my dignity, for my life as I knew it. I had already started a dossier of her secret meetings, times, places, little details that added up. I watched her leave early from the house, her phone glued to her hand. I saw Mark's car often parked at the community park. My mind kept circling around, trying to connect the dots, trying to anticipate her next move. I was already planning my confrontation, but I needed her to get comfortable to maybe slip up again. Then, one afternoon, I found the perfect opportunity. I had been watching her from the back window, waiting for her to leave. When she finally did, I slipped out quietly, just enough to follow her from a distance. She was headed toward that old industrial area on the outskirts of town where I knew Mark often met her. I parked my car a block away and crept behind some trees, trying to stay out of sight. What I saw made my blood run cold. She was waiting by an abandoned warehouse, and Mark was there too. They looked deep into each other's eyes, whispering. I could see her hand slipping into his coat pocket, pulling out a small package. My stomach clenched. Whatever it wasn't good. They kissed again, right there in broad daylight. It was a punch in the gut. I watched them for a few minutes, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest over and over. That was the moment I knew I had enough. I pulled out my phone and snapped photos, proof clear and undeniable. I took screenshots of the conversation on her phone, the dates, the times. I wanted everything. I didn't want her denying it anymore. I wanted her to see that I had caught her red-handed. I didn't wait to go home. I drove straight there, my hands trembling with anger. I knew what I had to do now. I had all the evidence I needed, and I was going to make her face the truth. I wanted her to see what her lies had cost me, what her betrayal had done. When I got back, I confronted her in the kitchen. She was pouring herself a glass of wine, acting casual as if nothing had happened. I threw the phone on the table, the photos and messages illuminated by the dim light. "Tell me what the hell this is," I demanded, voice cold but steady. Her face went pale, eyes darting, trying to hide her panic. "It's nothing," she lied, voice trembling. "You're overreacting. It's just a stupid thing, a mistake. Does this look like a mistake to you?" I cut her off, voice rising. "You've been cheating on me with my brother, and I've got proof. How long has this been going on?" She closed her eyes for a second, then looked away. "It's not what you think, it's just a save it." I shoved the photos across the table. "This isn't just a fling, Emily. This was planned, sneaky, and you've been lying to my face for weeks. I want the truth now." Her shoulders slumped and she finally broke down. "It was stupid," she whispered. "We didn't mean for it to happen, it just did." Hearing her say that made my stomach twist worse than anything. I felt my fists clench tighter. I wanted to scream, to shake her until she told me the real reason, but I kept my composure. This was only the beginning. I had a plan, something bigger, something that would make her regret ever crossing that line. "I'm done," I said, voice hollow. "You lied, you betrayed me, and I don't want to see you again. Pack your stuff and leave. Don't come back." She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Please, I didn't mean for it to happen. I love you, I still do." "Love? That's a joke," I spat, turning away. "You threw everything away for a secret affair, and now you want sympathy. No, you made your choice, I'm making mine." As she packed her things, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't just ending it, I was going to make her regret ever doing this. I was going to show her that betrayal had consequences, that I wasn't the kind of man who'd let this slide without a fight. When it was all over, I handed her the keys to her car and told her to get out. Watching her walk out the door, I finally allowed myself to breathe. The house felt emptier than ever, but my mind was sharper. I knew what I had to do next, and I'd already started laying the groundwork. She thought she'd gotten away with it. She was dead wrong. The silence in the house was deafening after she left. The emptiness pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. I sat on the couch, staring at the door she just walked out of, feeling every inch of betrayal crawling under my skin. I kept replaying that moment when I found the evidence, the way my fists clenched so tightly my knuckles cracked. I'd never felt so furious, so humiliated in my life. But I knew I couldn't just let it end there, not with her walking away thinking she'd gotten the last word. That day I decided I'd take control, plan something they wouldn't see coming. I spent hours on the phone, calling in favors, gathering information, and putting my plan into motion. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I wasn't just some naive husband who'd get walked over. I wasn't going to let her think she could cheat, lie, and escape without repercussions. The first step was simple. I needed her to realize that I had the upper hand. So I contacted someone I knew, an old friend who worked in private security. I explained the situation, and he agreed to help me install discreet cameras around the house and backyard. Nothing overt, just enough to catch her and Mark in the act again if they dared. I also had him wire the inside of her car. The idea of her knowing I was watching, and that there was hard proof, made my stomach churn. While all this was happening, I kept my cool with the neighbors, even pretending like everything was normal. I didn't want anyone to suspect I was planning something. I played the part of a hurt but composed man, all the while organizing my secret surveillance. It was almost surreal, like I was turning into a different person, cold, calculating, ruthless. And honestly, it felt good, like I was finally taking back some control. One thing I knew for sure, I had to wait for the perfect moment. I couldn't just burst in guns blazing, that'd blow everything. I wanted her to be caught red-handed with no way to deny it. The idea was to corner her, let her see that her lies had been exposed beyond any doubt. When the moment came, I wanted her to realize she was trapped. I kept a close eye on her routine. She started acting more nervous, changing her schedule. She was trying to cover her tracks, but I saw through it. I saw her glance over her shoulder more often, heard the nervous tone in her voice when she talked on the phone. It was obvious she knew. She was being watched, but she didn't realize how much I knew, exactly how far I'd gone to catch her. Then one evening I got the call I'd been waiting for. The cameras caught her sneaking out of the house late at night, meeting Mark in an alley behind the industrial park. They were kissing again, deep and desperate. I watched her slip into his car, her face lit by the faint glow of a street lamp. I snapped screenshots, saved recordings, and felt a rush of satisfaction and fury. This was it. The proof I needed. I sat in my car nearby, waiting for her to return. When she did, I followed her at a safe distance. She looked exhausted, her face pale but tense. She pulled into a parking lot and hurried into her apartment. I parked across the street, phone in hand, ready to record her inside. I wanted her to see I wasn't bluffing. I was going to confront her, and this time I'd do it with everything on the table. The next morning, I went to her front door just as she was leaving for work. I slipped a small envelope under the doormat. Inside was everything I'd gathered. The photos, recordings, and a simple note that read, "You thought you could get away with this, think again." I watched her find it, her eyes widen in shock, then quickly turn to tears. I knew she'd be scared, but I also knew she was starting to realize how badly she'd screwed up. That afternoon, I called her from my work phone. "We need to talk," I said, voice steady but cold. "Meet me at the park alone. No tricks this time, or I'll make sure everyone knows what you've been hiding." When she arrived, I blocked her path, my heart pounding. "Why, Emily?" I asked. "Why did you do this to me, to Mark, to our family?" She looked down, trembling. "I was stupid. I thought I could keep it secret, that it wouldn't matter. I didn't mean for it to blow up like this." "Too late now," I said. "You lost everything the day you decided to betray me. You're going to regret this for the rest of your life." She begged, pleaded, tears streaming down her face. But I knew what I had to do next. I handed her the envelope. "Take this, it's everything I have, and I want you to leave right now and never come back." She clutched the papers, eyes filled with despair. "Please," she whispered, "don't do this, I still love you." "No," I interrupted. "You lost me the moment you decided my brother was more important than your vows. I'll never trust you again. Not after this." As she turned and hurried away, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd finally had my revenge, and I'd done it without crossing any lines I'd regret. I realized I'd finally taken control of the chaos she'd caused. And I knew one thing for sure: I'd come out of this stronger, even if it hurt like hell. The house was quiet now. The only thing left was to start rebuilding my life. But one thing was certain: trust, in this case, was dead. And I'd never let anyone betray me that way again. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. I thought once I handed her that envelope and told her to leave, I'd feel some kind of victory, some relief. Instead, I just felt hollow. The house was too quiet. The silence was deafening. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of her, her scent still lingering in the pillow, the half-empty cup of coffee she left on the counter, the empty spot at the dinner table where she used to sit. I kept telling myself I'd be better, that I'd move on, but truthfully, I was angry, hurt, and confused all at once. It felt like I'd lost a part of myself. That night I sat in the dark, staring at the living room, trying to process everything. My mind kept circling back to her, to the betrayal. I clenched my fists so tight my nails almost pierced my palms. I could still see her in my mind's eye, her lips pressed to Mark's, the way her hands trembled when she thought I wasn't looking. It was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from, but I realized I couldn't let her see me broken. Not yet. I still had one last thing to do, something that would finally put this chapter to rest once and for all. I had to make her understand that what she did wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal so deep it could never be forgiven. And I needed her to know I wasn't just going to walk away, that I was taking back control. So I devised a plan. This wasn't about petty revenge anymore. It was about making her feel what she'd caused me: pain, regret, and the realization that she'd lost everything she took for granted. I decided to send her a message, one that would hit her where it hurt, not with words but with proof. I wanted her to see the full extent of her betrayal, laid out in stark, undeniable reality. I gathered more evidence, screenshots of their secret texts, photos from that night, recordings of their voices. I wanted her to see everything, and I knew just how to deliver it. I contacted a friend, someone I trusted, to help me make a private, professional package. I wanted her to receive it directly, anonymously, so she'd never see it coming. It was going to be a carefully crafted, brutal reminder that I was always watching, always in control. For days, I prepared everything. I crafted an email, a simple message with no explanation, just the evidence attached. I didn't want her to be able to deny it. I wanted her to face the truth head-on. When everything was ready, I sent it. The moment I pressed send, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. I'd finally done what I needed to do to make her understand that I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. The response came faster than I expected. She called me, an unknown number, her voice trembling. "What is this? How did you find this?" she demanded. Her voice cracked, but there was a hint of panic I hadn't heard before. "You know what it is," I said, keeping my tone steady. "And now you understand. You thought you could cheat on me, lie to me, and walk away like it was nothing. Well, I'm not that guy. You should have thought about that before you crossed the line." There was silence on the line, then she finally whispered, "Please, I didn't mean for it to get this far." "Too late," I replied. "You lost me the day you let your betrayal go this far. Just remember, I have everything documented now. If I wanted to, I could make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. But I won't. I just want you to know you're done. And I'm done." She started crying, begging me to forgive her, to give her a second chance. I didn't bother to argue. I told her she'd burned that bridge, that she'd chosen her path, and that I was taking mine back. I told her I was starting over and that I'd rebuild my life without her shadows hanging over me. When I finally hung up, I felt a strange sense of closure. My heart still ached, but I knew I'd won. Not in the way she'd wanted, but on my own terms. I had exposed her, taken control, and reclaimed my dignity. No longer would I be the fool she thought I was. Now I had the keys to the house, the documents, the evidence, all in my hands. I was ready to move on. The future wouldn't erase what she did, but it would be mine to shape now. I left her with one last thing, an official notice of separation, signed and filed, ready to be served. As I handed over the papers at the courthouse, I looked her in the eyes for a brief moment. "This is over," I said softly, "and I'll never let someone betray me like that again." Walking out that door, I finally believed I was free. The pain would diminish, and someday I knew I'd be able to trust again. But for now, I'd focus on rebuilding my life, stronger, wiser, and more cautious. And that's the takeaway. Betrayal doesn't have to break you. Sometimes it just forces you to take back your power. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, quiet reflection, and the slow process of putting myself back together. After the final divorce papers were signed and filed, I felt a strange calm settle over me. It wasn't relief exactly, but more like the end of a long, exhausting chapter. I finally had clarity. I knew who she was, who I was, and I understood that sometimes the best revenge is just walking away with your head held high. I spent a lot of time alone, walking through the neighborhood, sometimes sitting in the park just thinking. Every now and then, I'd catch myself replaying that scene in the backyard, the kiss, her hands on him. But I also knew that holding onto that anger wouldn't do me any favors. It was a part of my past, and now I had to focus on healing, on rebuilding what I'd lost and moving towards something new. I started therapy, something I'd avoided for too long. It helped me unpack the feelings I'd buried deep inside, the betrayal, the humiliation, the shame. I learned to forgive myself for missing the signs, for not seeing it coming. I realized that I had allowed myself to be vulnerable, and that's okay. But now I was more cautious, more aware of what I deserved. One evening, I was sitting on my porch, watching the sunset, when I finally felt a sense of peace. I thought about how much I'd learned, about trust, about boundaries, about respecting myself enough to walk away when someone crosses a line. I understood that revenge, as satisfying as it was, wouldn't bring her back or undo what she did. The real victory was in reclaiming my life, piece by piece. I also made a conscious choice to focus on myself. I took up new hobbies, reconnected with old friends, and even started dating again. It wasn't easy, trust isn't rebuilt overnight, but I was determined. I didn't want her betrayal to define me. Instead, I wanted it to teach me strength, resilience, and the importance of listening to my instincts. Looking back, I realized that her cheating was a sign of deeper issues. Not just about her fidelity, but about honesty and respect. I'll never forget that moment in the backyard, that flash of betrayal that shattered everything. But I also know I'm stronger now because of it. Her lies forced me to confront what I would and wouldn't accept, and that's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. So here's my advice to anyone reading this who might be going through something similar. Trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how small. If you feel something is off, investigate. And if you find proof of betrayal, don't hesitate. Take control of your story, your dignity. Revenge isn't about getting even. It's about reclaiming your power and walking away with your head high. I've come to understand that sometimes breaking free is the only way to truly heal. And in the end, that's what I did. I let go of the betrayal, the pain, the shame, and I chose my happiness. She might have thought she could get away with it, but I proved her wrong. And I finally, genuinely moved on.